Welcome to our Middle East Briefing show. Today, we dive into the latest headlines making waves in the region. First up, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seething over the International Criminal Court's decision to issue arrest warrants for him and several others, accusing them of war crimes and crimes against humanity. This move has sparked a fiery debate, with human rights groups applauding the decision while Israel and the US express their outrage. The implications of these warrants could be far-reaching, affecting Netanyahu's international movements and political standing. Stay tuned as we unpack the details and reactions from all sides involved. In other news, former Trump National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, along with two other ex-Trump officials, recently met with Netanyahu in a show of solidarity following a Hamas attack. O'Brien emphasized that his visit was as a private citizen and not directed by Trump. This meeting comes on the heels of the ICC's controversial arrest warrants, adding another layer to the already complex geopolitical landscape. We'll explore the significance of this visit and what it means for US-Israel relations moving forward. Finally, a heartwarming story from the sports world. Anthony Kakase, also known as the Andy Town Apache, received a hero's welcome in Belfast after clinching the IBF Super Featherweight title in Saudi Arabia. Kakase's victory over Joe Cordina has inspired many, and his return was met with jubilant celebrations from fans and supporters. We'll hear from Kakase himself and his fans about what this win means for his career and his community. Please stay tuned for the full details on these stories and more. BBC, the issuance of ICC arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as three Hamas leaders, has ignited a firestorm of reactions. Netanyahu vehemently condemned the decision, labeling it a moral outrage of historic proportions, and accusing ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan of anti-Semitism. Khan's statement, meticulously crafted with legal precision, accuses both Israeli and Hamas leaders of war crimes and crimes against humanity. This includes allegations of extermination, murder, and the use of starvation as a weapon of war. The move has drawn sharp criticism from various quarters, including US President Joe Biden, who called the warrants outrageous, and human rights groups that see the ICC's actions as a long overdue step towards accountability. New York Times, in a related development, former Trump administration officials, including Robert O'Brien, John Rakolta, and Ed McMullen, met with Netanyahu in Israel to express solidarity following the October 7 Hamas-led attack. O'Brien, who served as Trump's national security advisor, emphasized that the attack would not have occurred under Trump's presidency. This meeting took place shortly after the ICC's announcement of arrest warrants for Netanyahu and other leaders. O'Brien's visit underscores the ongoing political and diplomatic complexities surrounding the Israel-Hamas conflict, as well as the former Trump officials' continued influence and involvement in international affairs. Associated Press, the ICC's arrest warrants place Netanyahu and Hamas leaders among a notorious group of world figures accused of heinous crimes. The charges against Hamas leaders Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, and Mohammed Deif include extermination, murder, and taking hostages. Netanyahu and Gallant face accusations of war crimes such as starvation of civilians and intentional attacks on civilian populations. The warrants highlight the severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where the UN reports a full-blown famine. While Israel denies these allegations, the warrants could severely restrict the travel of the accused leaders. The ICC's actions also draw parallels with past indictments of figures like Russian President Vladimir Putin and Sudan's Omar al-Bashir, emphasizing the court's role in pursuing justice for international crimes. Washington Post. In Fredericksburg, Virginia, the GOP primary for Virginia's 7th congressional district features two strikingly similar candidates, Derek Anderson and Cameron Hamilton. Both men, clad in tailored dark suits with military insignia, share backgrounds in elite military units and federal government service. Anderson, a 39-year-old former Green Beret, and Hamilton, a 37-year-old ex-Navy SEAL, each promise to tackle issues like China and campus protests, presenting themselves as Republicans' best hope to flip the battleground seat. Their similarities extend to their political stances and endorsements, with Anderson being backed by House Speaker Mike Johnson and Hamilton supported by Senator Rand Paul. Despite their shared profiles, the challenge for both candidates lies in distinguishing themselves to voters before the June 18 primary, in a district that leans Democratic but remains winnable for Republicans under favorable conditions. Associated Press. In the bribery trial of Senator Bob Menendez, testimony has focused on a New Jersey home owned by his wife, Nadine, which was rescued from foreclosure by businessman Wael Hanna. Attorney John Moldovan testified that Hanna paid over $20,000 to settle the mortgage debt in 2019, just as Menendez allegedly helped Hanna secure a lucrative business deal with Egypt. The case has unveiled significant evidence, including 13 gold bars and over $480,000 in cash found during an FBI raid on the home in 2022. Prosecutors argue these were bribe proceeds, while Menendez's defense claims the cash was a safeguard against trauma from his family's past. The trial, which began last week, is expected to continue for at least another month, with Menendez facing charges of acting as a foreign agent for Egypt, among others. Associated Press. Tragedy struck a Tennessee Community College's study abroad program in Brazil when Clifford Gordon, an associate professor of art at Columbia State Community College, was swept away by an ocean wave and subsequently found deceased. Gordon, who was with 3 students at the time, was taking pictures along an oceanside road in Parody when the incident occurred. The students were unharmed, but Gordon's body was later recovered by Brazilian authorities. Columbia State's president, Janet F. Smith, expressed deep sorrow over the loss, highlighting Gordon's talent and dedication to his students. The study abroad program included 12 students from 4 Tennessee community colleges, and they are being offered counseling upon their return. Gordon, known for his collage and painting works, had a long association with Columbia State and had traveled to Brazil many times, even learning Portuguese. Yahoo US reports that UFC superstar Conor McGregor has openly criticized current featherweight champion Ilia Topuria, likening him to his estranged former friend Artem Lobov in a derogatory manner. McGregor's disdain for Topuria, despite the latter's impressive victory over Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 298, is palpable. McGregor, streaming live on DualBits, dismissed Topuria's championship as meaningless and expressed no interest in fighting him. Instead, McGregor predicted that former champion Max Holloway would easily defeat Topuria in a potential match, emphasizing Holloway's superior speed and experience. Washington Post illustrates the increasing alignment of state power with right-wing sentiments, particularly in the context of protests. The article highlights a case where Texas Governor Greg Abbott pardoned Daniel Perry, who was convicted of murder after shooting a protester in Austin. This pardon, along with new laws in states like Florida and Oklahoma that protect drivers who strike protesters, exemplifies a broader trend of state-sanctioned violence against left-aligned protests. The narrative draws a stark contrast with the state's harsh response to pro-Palestinian protests in New York, where the NYPD's aggressive actions were praised by Mayor Eric Adams, underscoring the selective application of state power. Al Jazeera details the tragic helicopter crash that claimed the lives of Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, and other officials. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei announced 5 days of mourning and appointed First Vice President Mohammad Mokbar as interim president. The crash, which occurred in poor weather near the Azerbaijan border, has led to nationwide grief, with government offices and businesses closing for the funerals. Despite the loss of its top leaders, experts believe Iran's foreign policy will remain consistent, as it is primarily dictated by the National Security Council, the Supreme Leader, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. BBC, hundreds of people gathered to welcome boxing's Andytown Apache, Anthony Kakase, back home after his stunning world title victory over the weekend. Kakase, who shocked the boxing world by stopping Joe Cordina in the 8th round to win the IBF super featherweight title in Saudi Arabia, was fighting on the undercard of the Tyson Fury-Alexander Usyk heavyweight title clash. The 35-year-old underdog from West Belfast was greeted with chants of Anto Kakase as he returned to Andersonstown. In disbelief, Kakase expressed his shock and joy to BBC News NI, stating, "I can't believe it, I swear to God." He shared that looking at pictures of his children and saying prayers before the fight gave him the drive to succeed. Kakase, who now aims to win all the belts, was met by young boxers Harry Hassin and Jerry McCann, who were inspired by his performance. Among the crowd were Paul and Liz Drain, who described Kakase as an inspiration. Mrs. Drain recounted her intense nerves during the fight, while Mr. Drain, who used to train Kakase, praised his perseverance and self-belief. The celebration highlighted Kakase's journey and the impact of his victory on his community. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.